adjust this mic again because I just finished reading that last chapter. Time for another chapter reading. This is by Landon. Dash Dreams, Chapter 5. So close, yet so far. The sun rose over. Oh, I already failed. Why is that gonna come in like a running thing? I fail like the first words of every story. The sun over Equestria was hovering at its peak. Dash's daylight fleeting. She hadn't spotted the forlorn filly yet. She had narrowed her search down to the safest patch of wood outside of Ponyville without having to cross the entire town again from the Crusaders' clubhouse. It had to be where the young Pegasus had gone before. Rainbow Dash found herself flying lower than recommended in order to search under the thick branch layer. So far into her journey, she hadn't found anything of significance. A few common hoofprints from various travelers, a burned-out fire, and a piece of gold-lined cloth. She studied the patch closely. It hadn't been affected by the elements yet, so it must have been discarded recently. She considered it for a moment and decided to take the leap, cutting a left on the road and heading toward Manhattan as fast as she could while watching closely. Before long, two familiar bouncing shapes came into view. Dash pushed ahead of them and stopped, cutting off the remaining Crusaders' path. What are you doing out here? I told you to stay back in town. No, you said to tell our sisters what happened, and we did just that. Now we're going to find a friend. Apple Bloom replied, getting a glaring response. Girls, this isn't one of your crusades. You could get serious. I can't read right now. I read finally the last chapter, and my voice cracked. Just dandy. You could get seriously hurt out here. You need to go home right now. She mentioned for them to turn around. No, not until we find Scootaloo. Sweetie Belle called out. Nope, can't read. I'm butchering this thing, man. Not as bad as that one. Not that one. But what was it called? I don't know if it was so bootleg, man. Never do that voice again. It was so funny though. Cause they were against gays. That's not. It's not supposed to be funny, but when you said it, just made me burst out laughing. And I got in trouble, but hey, stuff happens. You promise, Apple Bloom asked. Pinkie Pie promise, but only if you two get home. Fine on. Come on, Sweetie Belle, let's go. The two reluctantly obeyed. Oh my gosh, I can't read, man. And obeyed down the path toward home. If they kept a good pace, they could return before the sun set. Rainbow Dash watched them leave until they were out of view and turned to resume her journey. She arrived at the outer edge of the surprisingly modern city shortly after. The sun. I can't. Let me get my breath here. It was just making its way downward, and she could spend that day high above the streets in search of the familiar purple-maned filly. It wouldn't be easy in a big town, but it was all she had to go on. Before she had gotten long into her trip, she felt a familiar sensation of her growling stomach, reminding her that she had been flying all day without food. This could end badly. Ignoring the thought, she just kept searching. She landed and chose a small building among the countless others that she could get a quick meal. Coming up to the small restaurant, she stepped inside. Not unlike those in Ponyville, the few tables scattered around various types of city ponies eating quietly at respective tables. A few sat empty, with remaining scraps left over of the previous visitors. Isn't that always what happens? Like they were like so close to meeting, but it just doesn't happen. What kind of like I like if you've ever watched like a Mexican soap opera. Like every time someone runs away, you feel like, damn, yeah, you should have ran away like before. And I kind of feel the same way about this because I think that Rainbow Dash kind of abuses, like not in the hit gonna bang your brains out kind, but And when I mean that, I mean not in a sexual way. I mean with an actual gun, bang bang, shoot your brains out. She lifted the menu and picked out a simple sandwich and water. She didn't have time to waste with the complex menu. The waiter brought her food and chuckled at the sight of yet another apparent country pony at his table for the afternoon. He shrugged it off and returned to work. Dash took her sandwich hungrily and made quick work of the delicious treat. I can't speak, man. Relaxing for only a moment after she found her mind wandering on its own, accounting the last 2 days. More than more had happened in them than most of her previous adventurous encounters. She thought about Scooby. If she had been let into the city, oh my God, puppy, was that puppy? Pup. Oh, oh God, is she all right? The dog ran into the door, and it was all her fault. Scooby could die out here, and it was all her fault. No, I can't think like that. I have to go find her. She laid her payment on the table and bolted back out of the doors. She had to find the young fan before night came, and the city turned into a very dangerous place. Dash never experienced the danger firsthand, but working with weather ponies from other areas left her with little to imagine. The stories were brutal. Weather stallions from the city come across mares in the early morning. Only a few lucky ones would survive. She felt her wings beat harder. Her speed increased, and her eyes darted through the streets with more focus she normally saved for extremely high-speed flight. Night was falling, and her heart was racing faster. Realization set in. She wouldn't be able to search overnight. It was far too dark to inspect the streets clearly. Her mind reeled at the thought of leaving the filly alone here. If she was indeed in the city alone, she may not fare well. Rainbow Dash could only hope she was elsewhere, deciding it was best for her to grab a room and wait for the morning. The city's complete lack of clouds narrowed her options to one of the many apartments. Luckily, one close to her offered overnight rentals. Parting with few of her remaining bits, she was led to a room, situated on the third floor, room 304. Small and finished it was more than enough for her likely sleepless night. She walked to the nearby she walked to the nearby window and gazed out and down to the streets, toward the setting sun, hoping Scoodley would be alright come morning if she couldn't find her. And here we are, Casa de Scratch. Well, one of them at least. Oh God. The DJ pushed open a door, and a suitably sized apartment that looked as if it was abandoned long ago. Room 404 was a cheap building. It was one of her many randomly scattered residences. Having, oh my goodness, man, how much houses do you have? Having made more enough money during her prime days, she kept them rented, just in case. Just, I don't guess say anything about that. You have more than one house? I told you, Scooter asked with an uncertain tone. They come in handy, sometimes. The filly pushed her way inside and expected the main room. There was nothing outstanding about it. A small couch and some chairs. To the side looked to be a small amp and spare cords. Vinyl had most likely forgotten about them long ago, and a modest view over the part of the city. The apartment was a cheap place she kept rented for special occasions, and this was by any standard a special occasion. Vinyl shut the door and watched the younger pony as she made her way around the apartment's small rooms. Can't read that. Like, it's not written, I just couldn't see it for some reason. What the heck? I don't even know how to explain that. Her mind fell into its own fit of exploration. Scootloo had only a day prior been homeless, and had her dreams crushed by some egocentric star who sounded to have her head too high in the clouds to know how important she was to a child. The DJ felt her normally manic grin fade. She caught herself and shook the thoughts away. Just because she had made a mistake as a filly in the city, doesn't mean she couldn't stop it from happening to this lost Pegasus. Jugs ran through the city freely. She had made the mistake with them long ago, but she was able to keep away from them at a young age. Her nightlife in Equestria's most popular DJ in her later years tended to leave her finding very creative ways of releasing her stress. This came on more than a few occasions into tricking a mare stallion home for a fix. It was shameful, something Scoodley would never know about. She needed a role model, and Vano, oh my goodness, and I was gonna say it again, and Vano may not have been the best option, but it was better than leaving her to the monsters living alone, tending to bring out. Satisfied with her walk around, Scoodley returned to her newly found friend. Vinyl felt the filly's gaze, and looked back through the colored glass of her shades. She led the orange pony over to the couch and sat and took a seat, resting for a long, le- resting from the long walk. Although she was well accustomed to long journeys, the younger of the two was exhausted from the trip. Laying a pillow on the large couch, she relaxed and turned her attention to her new friend. So what's with the sunglasses? She prompted the electric maned mare. Wow, you're a persistent one. She put a hoof to the rim of the glasses and thought for a moment. I've had these since my first days as a DJ. A gift from a long, long friend. She paused and thought again. Something about the filly seemed to relieve her, thinking more than usual. So why wear them all the time? I don't know. I just never kind of thought about it. I guess it was to remind me of her back when she was kind of my hero. I just got used to having them on, and here we are. Wore them every day since I could remember. I guess that makes sense. Does it? She rested her head on the couch and it unintentionally fell into a deep sleep. Much of her own confusion, her dreams once again were filled with Rainbow Dash. This time her idol had pulled her from a near lethal fall. The filly found her wings useless, limped to her sides. Her throbbing head confused her. Dash struggled to remain airborne as Scooter laid her wings awkwardly. It looked like they were trying to escape something. She lifted her aching head from Dash's sighing coat to watch a large dark hoof slam into her former hero's side. She watched in horror as the duel fell limply into the forest below. No! She cried out, her wings flapping instinctively, and she toppled off the couch where she had rested. Regaining control, she lifted herself from the floor, pushing the nightmare from her head. Lionel kicked open the door to the next room, a record caught in her magic spinning wildly over. A weapon of mass irritation if needed. That gives me an idea for my fiction. Hmm. Landon, I think you're onto something here. Seeing the filly laying on the dark floor, she released the record, forgetting to stop its emotion before embedding itself into the soft wall. She trotted over to the filly and took a seat by the window, gazing out and down to the Yep. Sorry, man, but if you're listening to this, I may or may not have one of those. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't ask your questions. Sulu couldn't shake the image of Dash from her head. Even after her cold denial, she was still drawn towards her. She hardly noticed Vinyl sitting beside so many nights sleep under alone. It was different now. She had always hoped Dash would take her in, but instead, she had the white DJ. The mare had taken her without question immediately, truly caring without persuasion. She grinned and leaned against her friend, thinking about her life, short as it was. Vino felt the filly's head resting against her side, and carefully maneuvered her head to glance down, without being noticed. No pony could see behind the dark shades of her eyes began to moisten. Her own fault behind her, she was certain now. Scoodley would stay with her. She needed to settle down from her past anyway. Having abandoned the drugs and alcohol her prior life was turning around. The thought of losing a new friend was able to bring out emotions she hadn't felt in years. Hey, Vinyl, the filly asked almost inaudibly. The one and only, she replied with a calmer tone. Then normally, as it to not ruin the moment, "Do you ever miss your friend, the one who gave you the sunglasses?" Lionel thought it over for a moment before replying. They had gotten caught up in a pretty swift falling out long ago, when she was willing to recall the details. "You know, I guess I do. Things probably could have bonged, could have bonged better. God dang it. Things probably could have gone better. We had a pretty rough end. I think I misdashed. Maybe. I don't know. Makes sense. It's not in our nature to run, but it's nice to have options. Even if she never knew how you felt. Maybe you should tell her sometime." The filly simply nodded in response and continued to watch outward. The DJ resumed their position with quiet thought as well. They sat and contemplated their respective pasts. Scootaloo's being much shorter, but no less eventful in its own right. Carefully, she lifted a blanket from the couch with her magic and draped it over the two, silently watching out from the window, feeling as if their troubles were mere feet away, and yet farther than ever. Oh, my chest hurts because of this story. It's too good, man. Chest hurts. Heck yeah. Alright, so that's it. I might read, I might not. You'll know.